The water bottle sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it that morning, right beside the note I'd written in careful block letters. Clara's bottle. Please bring to game. I could picture it perfectly from where I stood on the sidelines, watching my teammates guzzle from their bright plastic containers while the summer sun pressed down like a hot iron. My throat felt like sandpaper. My lips cracked when I tried to swallow. "Water break!" Coach Williams called out, and everyone scattered to the benches except me. I stayed rooted to my spot, pretending to retie my cleats. My hands shook slightly as I pulled at the laces, not from exertion but from the familiar ache of being forgotten. Again. The field stretched out before me, wuthering in the heat, and I thought about walking to the parking lot to check if maybe, just maybe, someone had come back with it. But I already knew they hadn't. I'd checked twice during warm-ups. "Clara, you good?" Jessica jogged past, water dripping down her chin. I nodded, forcing brightness into my voice. "Yeah, just my shoe." She shrugged and ran back to the group huddled under the single tree at the field's edge. Through the chain-link fence, I could see the parking lot. Our silver minivan wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. They'd driven straight to the mall after dropping me off, just like Mum said they would. "We'll be back before the game ends, sweetie. Don't worry." Don't worry, as if worry was something I could control, something I could simply decide not to feel. The game resumed. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Every breath tasted metallic. I ran anyway, pushed my legs forward even as spots danced at the edges of my vision. The ball came my way and I kicked it weakly, watching it roll pathetically toward the goal before their defender intercepted it with ease. Coach's disappointed sigh carried across the field. At halftime, I slipped away to the public water fountain near the bathrooms. The water tasted like rust and ran in a weak, lukewarm trickle, but I pressed my mouth to the spout anyway, drinking desperately, while other girls from opposing teams stared. One of them whispered something to her friend, and they both looked away quickly when I glanced up. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and returned to find my team gathered around Coach Williams. She was gesturing animatedly, drawing plays in the dirt with a stick. "Clara, you're subbing out this half. Madison, you're in." "But you're off your game today. Rest up." I sat on the bench for the remaining 30 minutes, watching Madison score twice in my position. The sun continued its assault, and I continued to imagine that cold, insulated water bottle sitting on our counter, beads of condensation rolling down its purple surface. I'd saved birthday money for 3 months to buy that bottle. It kept water cold for 24 hours. The label said so. We won, despite my uselessness. The team celebrated with a huddle and cheer while I gathered my gear, moving slowly, deliberately, making sure to look busy so no one would try to include me in the joy. When the parking lot finally revealed our minivan pulling in, 40 minutes after the final whistle, I was sitting alone on the curb. Mum rolled down the window, her face flushed with shopping trip excitement. "How'd it go, sweetie?" I stood, hefting my bag over my shoulder. In the back seat, my sister Lily was practically buried in shopping bags, a new pink dress draped across her lap, matching shoes peeking out from tissue paper. "Fine," I said, climbing into the front passenger seat. "Did you score?" This from Lily, barely looking up from her phone. "No." "Oh." She lost interest immediately, turning back to her screen. Dad glanced at me in the rearview mirror from the driver's seat. "You look red. Did you drink enough water?" The question hit me like a slap. I stared at the back of his head, at the grey streaking through his dark hair, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "My water bottle's still at home, on the counter next to the note I left." Silence filled the car for exactly 3 seconds. "Oh, honey," Mom said, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy. "I'm so sorry. We were rushing to get Lily to the mall before the sale ended, and it's fine." I cut her off because hearing the excuse was somehow worse than being forgotten. "We'll remember next time," Dad added, his eyes already back on the road. Next time. There would be a next time, and a time after that, and countless times stretching into an infinite future of small, forgotten moments that accumulated like dust in corners no one bothered to clean. I turned my face to the window and watched familiar streets blur past, each one looking exactly like the last. At home, I went straight to my room without eating dinner. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. I'd gotten good at ignoring physical discomfort, at pushing through, at making do. The water bottle still sat on the counter downstairs. I could hear Lily's excited chatter drifting up through the vents as she showed off her new clothes to Mum, their voices blending into a cheerful symphony of approval and attention. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling, counting the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck there when I was 8. 57 of them, arranged in no particular constellation, just scattered light in the darkness. Like me, I thought. Scattered, dim, easy to overlook. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "Good game, you okay?" Seemed quiet after. I typed back, "Yeah, just tired." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, finally. "Okay, cool, see you at practice Monday." I set the phone face down on my nightstand and closed my eyes. Sleep came eventually, heavy and dreamless, the kind of sleep that feels less like rest and more like temporary surrender. When I woke, it was still dark outside, that peculiar pre-dawn darkness that makes everything feel suspended. My mouth was desert dry. I'd gone to bed without drinking anything after the game, too stubborn to go downstairs and face that water bottle sitting there, a silent witness to my insignificance. I swung my legs off the bed and stood, intending to finally get water, when the dizziness hit. The room tilted violently to the left, then overcorrected to the right. My vision went sparkly at the edges, like someone had shaken a snow globe inside my head. I reached for the bedpost, but my hand closed on empty air. The floor came up to meet me hard. I felt my head crack against the corner of the nightstand on the way down, a sharp burst of pain that turned immediately into spreading warmth. Wetness. My hand came away dark and sticky when I touched my temple. I should call out. I should yell for Mum or Dad, but my voice wouldn't work properly, came out as barely a whisper. Help. No one heard. Of course, no one heard. I lay there on the carpet, feeling the wetness spread beneath my head, feeling my heartbeat slow and soften into something irregular and strange. The glow in the dark stars above me seemed to brighten, or maybe my vision was just dimming everywhere else. 57 stars. I'd counted them so many times over the years. This was absurd. People didn't die from forgetting water bottles. This wasn't how lives ended. Except it was, wasn't it? Not the water bottle itself, but the accumulation of small neglects, the gradual understanding that you mattered less, that your needs could be deprioritized, that you were the expendable one in every equation. The body remembered what the mind tried to rationalize away. The body kept score. My thoughts grew soft and distant. I wondered if anyone would find me before morning. I wondered if Lily would be upset, or if she'd mainly be annoyed that the funeral would interfere with her social schedule. I wondered if Mum and Dad would finally remember the water bottle, still sitting on the counter, a piece of evidence in the case of their negligence. The stars were so bright now, so close. I could almost reach them. I stopped trying to. The darkness that came was absolute and strangely peaceful, like sinking into deep water that held no temperature at all. For the first time in years, I felt neither hot nor cold, neither hungry nor thirsty, neither present nor absent. I simply was, and then I wasn't, until I was again. Consciousness returned not gradually but immediately, like someone flipping a light switch. I sucked in air, real air that filled real lungs, and shot upright in bed. My bed, my room. The same glow-in-the-dark stars above me, the same textured ceiling, the same purple curtains blocking out morning light. but different. Everything was different because I was different. I pressed my palm to my temple. No blood, no wound, no pain, just smooth skin and the steady, reliable beat of my pulse beneath my fingertips. My phone sat on the nightstand, screen glowing with a notification. I picked it up with trembling hands. The date stared back at me. 3 years earlier. The morning of Lily's 14th birthday party. The event that would consume our entire household for days. The celebration that had pushed my own birthday the previous week into a footnote status. I knew this day. I remembered it with perfect clarity because I'd spent it feeling invisible while everyone orbited Lily's joy. And now I was here again, given a chance I didn't ask for, but understood immediately was a gift. This Danielle I would choose differently. I got up, dressed in simple clothes, jeans and a t-shirt instead of the nice outfit I'd originally worn hoping to be noticed, and went downstairs. The kitchen was already chaos. Mum was on the phone with the caterer, her voice pitched high with stress. Dad wrestled with balloon decorations, and Lily sat at the counter directing both of them like a tiny general. "Clara!" Mum covered the phone receiver. "Can you run to the store and grab more paper plates? We're short." In the first life, I'd said yes immediately, eager to be useful, to contribute, to earn my place in the family narrative. I'd rushed to the store and back, missing breakfast, arriving sweaty and breathless to find no one had noticed my absence or my return. "No," I said calmly. "I have plans today." 3 faces turned toward me in synchronized surprise. "What plans?" Dad asked. "My own. Have a good party." I walked out the front door before anyone could respond, pulling it shut on their confusion. My bike was in the garage where I'd left it. I wheeled it out and started riding with no particular destination. Just away, just elsewhere, just anywhere that wasn't that house filled with people who would forget to bring my water bottle. The morning air was cool and clean. I pedalled past the park where we used to play when I was younger, past the library that had been my refuge on countless lonely afternoons, past the school that sat empty and strange in the weekend silence. I rode until my legs burned and my lungs ached. But this time, the pain felt purposeful, chosen, mine. I ended up at the reservoir on the edge of town, a place I discovered in the original timeline, but much later, after years of searching for spaces that felt separate from family disappointment. The water stretched out, calm and silver, reflecting nothing but sky and clouds. I sat on the concrete barrier and breathed. For the first time since waking, I let myself think about what had happened. The fall, the blood, the darkness, the impossibility of being here now, alive and young again, with memory intact and choices remade available. I should feel more, I thought. More shock, more fear, more gratitude. Instead, I felt only clarity. I had died from accumulated neglect, and I had been given a chance to live differently. Not by changing them, but by changing myself. By stopping the pattern of reaching, asking, hoping, needing from people who had proven they would not provide. My phone buzzed. Mum calling. I silenced it and put the phone in my pocket. I stayed at the reservoir until early afternoon, watching light move across the water, thinking through everything I knew about the next 3 years. The patterns would try to repeat. There would be soccer games and forgotten water bottles, school events where Mum and Dad arrived late or not at all, birthday celebrations that shrank while Lily's expanded. But now I could see these moments coming like weather patterns on a map, and I could prepare. Not by fighting, not by confronting, simply by stepping aside and letting the storm pass around me instead of through me. When I finally rode home, the party was in full swing. The driveway was packed with cars. Music and laughter spilled from the backyard. I put my bike away and slipped in through the front door, intending to go straight to my room. "Clara, there you are!" Mum spotted me from the kitchen, her face flushed with hostess stress. "Can you help pass out cake?" "No, thank you," I said pleasantly. "I'm going upstairs." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "But you'll manage fine without me. You always do." I climbed the stairs while she stood frozen in place, probably trying to catalogue this new version of her daughter into some familiar framework. She wouldn't find one. I had died and been reborn with the same face, the same voice, the same body, but with a self-possession that came from understanding that survival meant letting go. From my room, I could hear the party continue without pause. No one came to check on me. No one knocked on my door. The celebration of Lily flowed on exactly as it had before, which proved my point perfectly. I wasn't needed in their narrative. I had been casting myself as a supporting character who kept missing cues, but the truth was simpler. I wasn't in their play at all. So, I would write my own. Over the following weeks, I established new patterns. When Mum asked me to drive Lily to friends' houses, I said no without explanation or apology. When Dad wanted help with yard work on days I had plans, I declined. When they scheduled family dinners during my study time, I ate earlier and stayed in my room. I was polite, I was calm, I was immovable. The confusion in their eyes was almost comical. They kept waiting for me to crack, to return to the eager-to-please Clara who bent herself into convenient shapes. But that Clara had died on a bedroom floor, bleeding from a head wound no one heard happening. "You've been very distant lately," Mum said one evening, catching me as I headed out for a bike ride. "Have I?" I tilted my head, genuinely curious about her perception. "Yes, you barely spend time with the family anymore." "I spend exactly as much time with the family as the family spends thinking about me," I said. "Which is to say, very little." "That's not fair. Mum," I kept my voice gentle but firm, "I'm not angry. I'm just adjusting my expectations to match reality. It's actually very freeing." I left her standing in the doorway and rode away into the evening, feeling lighter than I had in years. The truth delivered without rage carried more power than years of silent resentment ever had. The real test came 3 months later, on the date I remembered as the water bottle game. I had soccer practice after school, then a game that evening. In the first timeline, I'd left the note, placed the bottle prominently, reminded everyone at breakfast, and still been forgotten. This time, I packed 2 water bottles in my bag the night before. I said nothing to anyone about the game. When Mum asked at breakfast what my plans were, I said only, "Busy afternoon." At the game, I drank from my own bottles, staying hydrated and sharp. I played the best match of my season, scoring once and assisting twice. Coach Williams pulled me aside afterward, her face bright with approval. "Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it." That was the Clara I knew was in there. "Thank you, Coach." I smiled, genuinely pleased. I saw the minivan pull into the parking lot just as I was loading my bag. Not for me. They were dropping Lily at a friend's house nearby, but there nonetheless. Through the windshield, I could see Mum's face register surprise as she noticed me, then something like guilt as she probably remembered there had been a game she'd forgotten about. I turned away before they could call out, walking with my team to the pizza place where we always celebrated wins. I'd stopped waiting for my family to show up. I'd started showing up for myself instead. Lily found me later that night in my room. An unusual occurrence. She lingered in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. "You played today?" "Every Thursday," I said without looking up from my book. Mum felt bad, she forgot. Mum often forgets. Lily shifted her weight. "Are you mad at us?" I finally looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since Rebirth. She was just a kid, spoiled and centered but not malicious. She'd been given attention and learned to expect it, the same way I'd been given neglect and learned to expect that. We were both products of patterns neither of us had chosen. No, I said truthfully. I'm not mad, I'm just done participating in a dynamic that hurts me. What does that mean? It means I'm taking care of myself now instead of waiting for other people to do it. She frowned, processing this. That sounds lonely. It's less lonely than needing people who don't show up. She didn't have a response to that. After a moment, she drifted away, and I returned to my book. The words blurred a little, but I blinked until they came back into focus. Time moved forward. Seasons changed. I maintained my boundaries with quiet consistency. When Lily's birthday came around again, I didn't help with decorations or preparations. When my own birthday arrived, I celebrated with friends from the soccer team, and if my family's minimal effort bothered me, I didn't let it show. I'd learned that showing hurt gave people power over your emotions, and I was no longer interested in that particular exchange. The shift in family dynamics happened gradually, like water shaping stone. My parents became uncertain around me, almost tentative. They'd lost the script that told them how I would react, what I would tolerate, how much I would bend. Lily started knocking before entering my room. Dad asked my permission before making plans that involved me. Small changes, but they rippled outward. The real transformation came a year and a half after my rebirth. College applications were approaching, and in the first timeline, I'd chosen a local school to stay close to family, still hoping for some breakthrough in our relationships. I'd spent 4 years commuting to campus while watching Lily's high school experience from the margins, still playing the role of forgotten older sister. This time, I applied to schools across the country. When the acceptance letters arrived, I chose the farthest one, a university 3,000 miles away with an excellent academic program and no family connections whatsoever. That's so far, Mom said when I announced my decision at dinner. Her face showed genuine distress, which would have gratified the old Clara. The new Clara simply observed it. Yes, I agreed. That's the point. But what about holidays? This from Dad, Fork paused halfway to his mouth. You won't be able to come home easily. I'll video chat when I have time. Lily stared at me across the table, something unreadable in her expression. You really don't want to be here, do you? The question was more perceptive than I'd expected. I considered lying or softening the truth, but decided they'd earned honesty. I spent years wanting to be here, I said. Wanting to matter here. Wanting you all to remember that I existed and had needs too. That wanting almost killed me. I paused. Let that sink in. Now I want other things. Peace. Space. A life where my worth isn't measured by how little trouble I cause. Silence settled over the table like snow. We didn't know you felt that way, Mum said finally, her voice small. You didn't ask. We thought, Dad started, then stopped. What had they thought? That I was fine? That I didn't need the same attention they lavished on Lily? That I was somehow less demanding by nature rather than by necessity? It's okay, I said, and meant it. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it so you understand why I'm leaving and why I won't be coming back often. I need distance to become who I'm supposed to be. The rest of the dinner passed in uncomfortable quiet. I excused myself early and went to my room, where I'd already started packing boxes for the move. Each item I wrapped and stored felt like shedding weight, releasing old burdens, making space for new possibilities. Graduation came and went. I walked across the stage to mild applause from my family. Nothing like the screaming celebration they'd given Lily at her 8th grade promotion, but I'd stopped comparing. After the ceremony, we took obligatory photos, ate obligatory dinner, made obligatory small talk. I smiled through all of it, pleasant and distant, already halfway gone. The night before I left for college, Lily knocked on my door. I was doing final preparations, surrounded by luggage and boxes that would be shipped ahead. Come in. She entered slowly, taking in the stripped walls, the bare desk, the emptiness where my life used to be displayed. Looks different. New chapter, I said simply. Clara. She sat on the edge of my bed, hands twisted in her lap. I'm sorry. I stopped folding clothes and looked at her. For what, specifically? For... She gestured vaguely. For everything. For taking up so much space that there wasn't room for you. For not noticing how much you were struggling. For being the favourite. The apology was more than I'd expected and less than would fix anything. I appreciated its presence while acknowledging its limitations. Thank you for saying that, I told her. But you were just a kid being given attention. You didn't create the dynamic. Mum and Dad did, and I perpetuated it by not establishing boundaries sooner. Still, I could have been better. We both could have, but we're not those people anymore. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. Will you really not come home much? Probably not. Can I visit you sometime? At college? I considered this carefully. In the first timeline, Lily and I had drifted into polite stranger territory, seeing each other at obligatory holidays and speaking in pleasant generalities. This version of Lily, confronted with my absence before it became permanent, seemed different, more aware, more willing to see me as separate from her orbit. Maybe, I said, if you come as my sister, not as the centre of attention needing an audience. I can do that, she wiped her eyes. I want to do that. Then we'll see. She hugged me before leaving, and I let her, though I didn't quite hug back. Some wounds healed slowly, and trust had to be rebuilt brick by careful brick. My parents drove me to the airport. The ride was quiet, filled with the kind of tension that comes from knowing a relationship is changing irrevocably. At the departure terminal, Mum hugged me too tightly, her shoulders shaking slightly. We love you, she whispered. I hope you know that. I know you think you do, I said gently. And maybe you do, in your way. But love that doesn't show up when it matters feels a lot like absence. She pulled back, her face crumpling. Dad stepped forward, putting a hand on my shoulder. We failed you, he said bluntly. I can see that now. I wish I'd seen it sooner. Me too, I agreed. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done being small so everyone else can be comfortable. Will you call? Mum asked. Will you let us try to do better? I'll call sometimes. And if you actually do better, not just promise to, but actually show up differently, then maybe we'll rebuild something. But it has to be real. I'm not interested in performative change. They both nodded. Go on. Nodded, looking older and more uncertain than I'd ever seen them. I felt a pang of something like sympathy, but I didn't let it move me. Sympathy was what had kept me small before. Compassion was important, but so was self-preservation. I walked through security without looking back. College was everything, home wasn't. I arrived at campus knowing no one, carrying no history, free to build an identity that belonged only to me. I joined clubs that interested me, made friends who chose me deliberately, studied subjects that fascinated me. I dated briefly and casually, keeping things light, learning what I wanted without the weight of family dysfunction colouring every interaction. I called home monthly, brief updates that satisfied obligation without demanding intimacy. Mum and Dad tried, I'd give them that. They asked better questions. They remembered details about my life. They sent care packages that arrived on time. Small improvements, genuine effort, but still filtered through the lens of guilt rather than natural affection. Lily, surprisingly, became the most consistent connection. She called more often, asked real questions, listened to answers. She visited once sophomore year, staying in my dorm for a weekend, and behaved like an actual guest rather than expecting everyone to orbit her presence. We walked around campus, ate at cheap restaurants, talked about her high school experience and my college one. It wasn't deep sisterhood, but it was something real and mutual, which was more than we'd ever had before. "You seem happy," she observed on her last night, watching me interact with friends at a casual party. "I am," I said, realizing it was true. "I wish you'd been happy at home." "I wish that too, but wishing doesn't change the past. Does it change the future?" I looked at her, this younger sister who'd been handed everything and was only now learning to see beyond her own reflection. "Or sometimes, if the wishing comes with action," she nodded thoughtfully. "I'm trying. To be better, to notice people." "That's good," I said. "That's important." The soccer game happened in my junior year, 3 years after my rebirth, and exactly 6 years from the original water bottle incident. My university team was playing in a regional tournament, a big deal that came with decent attendance and family invitations. I sent the details to my parents without expectation, the same way I'd sent information about other events that came and went uncelebrated. The day of the game arrived hot and clear, reminiscent of that first forgotten match. I packed my own water bottles, I always did now, and warmed up with my teammates, feeling loose and confident. We'd worked hard all season, and this game mattered for rankings, for pride, for the simple joy of playing well. I was stretching when I heard my name called from the stands. I looked up, fully expecting to see one of my friends from campus. Instead, I saw my family, all of them. Mum, Dad, and Lily, seated in the bleachers wearing my school colours, holding a banner they'd clearly made themselves with my name and number painted in careful letters. Mum waved enthusiastically when she caught my eye. Dad gave a thumbs up. Lily held up her phone, already recording. I stared for a moment, processing this impossibility. They'd driven 6 hours, they'd coordinated schedules, they'd shown up without being begged or reminded or guilted into attendance. They were here because I mattered, not because I'd convinced them I did. Something shifted in my chest, a careful loosening of old defences. I raised one hand in acknowledgement, then turned back to my warm-up. The moment was significant, but I wouldn't let it overwhelm the game. I'd learned to hold achievements and emotions in balance, to let neither consume the other. We won. I played my heart out, scoring twice and assisting once, moving across the field with a freedom that came from playing for myself rather than for approval. When the final whistle blew, my teammates swarmed me in celebration, and I let myself sink into their joy, their presence, their uncomplicated appreciation of shared victory. My family waited at the fence afterward, patient and uncertain. I approached slowly, bag over my shoulder, hair still damp with sweat and victory. "You came," I said. Simple observation, no judgment attached. "We wanted to see you play," Mum said. "We should have wanted that a long time ago. But we're here now," Dad added, "if that counts for anything." I studied them, these people who'd given me life and then forgotten to sustain it, who'd loved me in theory but not in practice, who'd needed my near death to recognise my living. They looked nervous and hopeful, like students waiting for grades they suspected wouldn't be good. "It counts for something," I said finally. "Not everything, but something." Relief washed over their faces. Lily stepped forward, holding out a water bottle, brand new, expensive, exactly the kind I preferred. "We brought this for you," she said, "in case you forgot yours." I took it, feeling the weight of the gesture. This was the karmic mirror, the same family that had forgotten my water bottle, now bringing one without being asked, offering care proactively rather than reactively, attempting to prove they'd learned. "I didn't forget," I said, pulling my own bottle from my bag. "I never do anymore. But thank you." We stood there in the golden afternoon light, families separated by years of neglect and bridged by tentative repair. I wasn't ready to forgive completely. Forgiveness required time and sustained effort, not grand gestures, but I was ready to allow the possibility of something different, something better, something earned. "Are you free for dinner?" Mum asked. "We drove a long way. We'd love to take you somewhere nice, hear about school, about your life. I have plans with my team, I said. We always celebrate wins together. Disappointment flickered across her face, but she nodded. Of course, that makes sense. But, I continued, I'm free for breakfast tomorrow before you drive back, if you're staying overnight. We are, Dad said quickly. We booked a hotel. We hoped we'd get to spend time with you. Breakfast then. There's a place near campus that makes excellent pancakes. They agreed enthusiastically, and we exchanged information about where and when. As they turned to leave, heading back to their hotel, I watched them walk away together, 3 people who'd finally learned to see me, but only after I'd learned to see myself clearly. That night, celebrating with my team our favourite restaurant, I felt complete in a way that had nothing to do with family presence or absence. I'd built a life that sustained me independently. The fact that my parents were learning to participate in it was nice, but not necessary. That was the real transformation. Moving from need to appreciation, from desperation to acceptance, from begging for water to bringing my own. Breakfast the next morning was pleasant and genuine. We talked about my classes, my friends, hence my plans after graduation. They asked questions and listened to answers. Lily showed me photos from her high school activities, and I gave her advice about college applications. Mum and Dad held hands across the table, a united front attempting to make amends through sustained presence rather than empty promises. We're proud of you, Dad said as we finished eating. We don't say that enough, but we are. Thank you, I said, accepting the words without needing them. Will you come home for Thanksgiving? Mum asked hopefully. The whole family will be there. I considered this. Holidays had been painful in the first timeline, watching Lily receive elaborate celebrations, while my presence went barely acknowledged. But that was a different family, a different Clara, a different pattern. Maybe Christmas, I said. Thanksgiving, I usually volunteer at the campus food bank, but I'll think about Christmas. They accepted this compromise with grace, which itself felt like progress. We hugged goodbye in the restaurant parking lot. Real hugs this time, with something like mutual recognition in them. And I watched them drive away with a feeling approaching peace. The final proof came later that semester, in a moment I didn't anticipate. I was in my dorm room studying when my phone rang. Mum's number. I answered, already forming polite excuses for whatever family obligation she was about to propose. Clara, honey, I wanted to check something with you before we made plans. Okay. Lily's birthday is coming up, and we're planning a party. We wanted to know if you'd be able to come home that weekend, and if so, what days work best for you. We'd like to plan around your schedule. I set down my pen, genuinely surprised. In the first timeline, Lily's 16th birthday had been a massive event planned without any consideration for my college schedule. I'd been expected to show up whenever convenient for everyone else. You're asking me first? I said, before making plans? Yes. Mum sounded almost shy. We're trying to do things differently, to consider your time as valuable too. I appreciate that. I pulled up my calendar. I could come home that Saturday afternoon, stay through Sunday morning. Perfect. We'll plan the party for Saturday evening. And Clara? Yes? We're not making it huge this year, just immediate family and a few of Lily's close friends. We thought it might be nice to have it be more about spending time together than about spectacle. I smiled at my empty room, at this evidence of actual change. That sounds really nice, Mum. Good. We'll see you then. Love you. Love you too, I said, and hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in relation to my family in years. Genuine warmth. Lily's birthday party was small and sweet, nothing like the enormous productions of the past. We ate dinner together, laughed at inside jokes, played board games that had sat in closets for years. When it came time for cake, Lily insisted I sit beside her, and she blew out her candles, making a wish she wouldn't tell us, but that made her glance at me with something like gratitude. Later, as I was packing to head back to campus, she appeared in my doorway exactly like she had before I'd left for college, but this time with confidence instead of uncertainty. "Hey, Clara." "Yeah?" "Thanks for coming. It meant a lot." "You're welcome. It was actually nice." "Also." She came in and sat on the bed, picking at the comforter. "I'm applying to schools near yours, not the same one because I don't want to be weird and invade your space, but nearby. I thought maybe we could see each other sometimes, if you'd want that." I studied her, this sister who'd been a symbol of parental favoritism and had transformed into an actual person trying to build actual connection. She wasn't the enemy, she never had been. She'd just been a kid given too much and learning late how to share space with others. "I'd like that," I said honestly, "as long as you're doing it for yourself, not just for me." "I am, but also for you. Is that okay?" "That's okay." She hugged me before I left, and this time I hugged back fully, matching her gesture with equal pressure and presence. The drive back to campus was quiet and peaceful. I thought about the water bottle sitting on my kitchen counter 6 years earlier, a small object that had represented everything wrong in my family dynamics. I thought about dying on my bedroom floor, bleeding and alone, and convinced I didn't matter. I thought about waking up with a second chance and using it to build boundaries instead of bridges, to claim space instead of apologizing for existence. The journey from forgotten to remembered hadn't been about forcing recognition. It had been about recognizing myself first, valuing myself independently, and allowing others to join me in that valuation only if they were willing to show up authentically. I'd stopped asking them for anything, and in that stopping, I'd discovered everything I needed was already within me. The fact that they were learning to offer now without being asked was nice, but not necessary. That was freedom. That was rebirth. That was peace. I pulled into campus just as the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Drive safe. Text when you're back. Love you." I smiled and texted back. "Just arrived. Love you too?" The words felt true, which was perhaps the biggest miracle of all. Not that my family had changed, but that I'd changed enough to let love exist on terms that honoured everyone's wholeness instead of requiring my smallness. I grabbed my bag from the car and walked toward my dorm, toward my life, toward a future I'd built brick by careful brick out of clarity and self-possession. Behind me, the past receded into memory. Ahead of me, possibility stretched out wide and welcoming. I had my own water bottle. I always would. And that simple truth contained everything that mattered.